Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha, as you just heard, and I am very grateful to be here with you today. And I want to thank CurePSP for inviting me to be here with you. We have such a short time with one another today that I really want to focus most of my time on teaching you some speech exercises that you can do on your own. I hope that all of you will be working with a local speech language pathologist in your area, but I also want to teach you some exercises that you can actually start today after the conference. First of all, I want to mention that 90% of people with Parkinson's are likely to experience speech difficulty. People diagnosed with atypical Parkinsonism, probably 100% do experience speech difficulty. In addition to that, this is not a fun statistic. It's a little bit scary, but I tell you this so that you will understand the importance of speech therapy. Aspiration pneumonia in the Parkinson's population accounts for about 70% of the mortality rate. Again, that's a very scary statistic. And with atypical Parkinsonism, it's even higher than that. I want you to understand that the muscles we use for speaking are the same that we use for swallowing and the same that we use to be able to produce an effective cough. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. But I want you to know that I founded a nonprofit organization called Parkinson Voice Project. I know that you have access to my PowerPoint slides, and rather than take up part of the screen with my slides, I figured I would just talk to you, but you have the slides. Parkinson Voice Project is a nonprofit speech therapy clinic solely dedicated to helping people with Parkinson's and atypical Parkinsonism improve their speech and their swallowing. And we've developed a program. It's actually a two-part program, and it's called Speak Out and the Loud Crowd. Speak Out is the first part where patients will go through one-on-one speech therapy with a speech language pathologist. As they're going through the program, a very important part of the program is that the patient and the family are doing exercises at home on their own. I would say that for people diagnosed with atypical Parkinsonism, family support or friend support is extremely important. It's so much easier to do the exercises together with someone else. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you some exercises that you can do that can help. Right now, I'd like to show you a video of a gentleman named David. His diagnosis was PSP, and he went through the Speak Out therapy program. Now, the progress that people make is different for everyone. It depends at what stage you start speech therapy. So I would encourage anybody, once they receive a diagnosis of Parkinson's or one of the atypical Parkinsonisms, that they have a speech therapy evaluation right away. But you will get to see the improvement that this gentleman made. He had 12 therapy sessions and then also did exercises on his own. And so we'll watch that video.
Tell me your full name.
My name is David Ray Kimes.
And when were you diagnosed with PSP?
About 2 years ago.
Have you noticed a change in your voice or speech?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Has anyone said anything to you about your voice?
Yes.
What have they said?
They said I talk in a slurred manner.
Tell me your full name.
My name is David Ray Kimes.
And when were you diagnosed with PSP?
About 2 years ago, about September. Well, it was March of 2013.
Now that you've completed the Speak Out voice program, have you noticed a change in your voice or speech?
Yes, I have.
What have you noticed?
I have noticed that I speak better and clearer.
Have your family or friends noticed a change in your voice?
Yes, my younger son says to me all the time, "Why you speak so well on the phone?" 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
What do you like most about your new voice?
I like the fact that I can speak when I want to be heard.
As you can see from the video, David made good progress in speech therapy, and it was only 12 sessions. Typically, people go through the Speak Out therapy program and they're doing 2 or 3 therapy sessions a week, but they're doing daily home practice once or twice a day. That is really important for everybody to understand. It's really the same, not just for speech therapy, but for physical therapy. It's not enough to go through the therapy sessions. You need to be doing home practice every single day. Otherwise, it won't be effective. Now, the challenging part, Speak Out is the first part of the program, like you saw. The Loud Crowd are the group sessions where patients would come once a week to group and then continue their home practice. Now, with COVID going on, it's been real challenging. For example, at Parkinson Voice Project, we haven't been able to have our weekly group sessions, which really could have been detrimental to all of our patients. But what we ended up doing, and you can take advantage of this too, is that 6 days a week, we are hosting free online speech practice sessions, and they're on Facebook or they're on YouTube, and those are a great tool for right now. But I want to go back to speech therapy. So many times after somebody goes through speech therapy, we often hear the family or the spouses, they'll be very frustrated and say, you know, he speaks with intent for you when he's in therapy, but he's not doing it at home. Or I can't understand anything she's saying in conversation. So what's the use of even doing speech therapy? And this is the part that I really want to drive home today. Speech therapy is not just about conversational speech. In fact, for people with atypical Parkinsonism, it's about so much more. It is about being able to retain the ability to swallow. And it's not just about swallowing food and liquid. We have to really think about being able to control our saliva. And all of that, as you work on speech therapy, you're working the same muscles that you're using to swallow food, liquid, and your own saliva. In addition, you're working the muscles that you use to produce an effective cough. And I cannot stress how important this is. So even if somebody goes through speech therapy and their conversational speech doesn't appear to be that good, the person's still having to repeat, or maybe they did very well in speech therapy, but as the condition progresses, conversational speech becomes more difficult. I want you to think about this. As long as the person can complete the exercises, even if they don't always speak with intent, even if they don't always use their best voice in conversation, if they can do the speech exercises, then they should do them, because that is your best defense against swallowing issues. It is the best way to be able to better control the saliva, and it is the best way to be able to produce an effective cough. Now let me talk about the ability to produce a cough. The vocal folds sit on top of the airway, okay, that leads to the lungs. And anytime food or liquid tries to go down the wrong way, what do we start doing? We start, the vocal folds slam together and we start coughing. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing when we start coughing, because the vocal folds are trying to keep the food, liquid, or saliva from going down the wrong way, okay? If the muscles are weak, okay, if they become weak. So think about it. In order to produce a cough, you've got to take a deep breath in and your lungs expand. You contract the muscles and you push the air back up. It blows the vocal cords apart and you cough. But if these muscles get so weak that you can't produce a cough, what often happens, especially with PSP, is that when somebody tries to cough, it's very weak. And so you hear this, it's a very weak cough. We don't want that. We want to have a nice, strong, we need a nice, strong cough. But to be able to cough, we've got to coordinate the air going in and the air going out. So I'm going to show you some exercises that you can do right away to start working on this. But please keep in mind, especially for the spouses in the family, just because the conversational voice may not be as strong as we want it to be, if the patient does the exercises, has the capability to do these exercises, then you are helping much more than just the ability to speak. Okay, so I'm going to show you the exercises. The Speak Out program has 6 exercises, and I'm going to go through all 6 of those. But even more than that, I'm going to show you some different exercises, some easy ones that you can do at home. And I'm going to keep an eye on the time because I want to get through all of them. Like I mentioned, Parkinson Voice Project is doing these free online practice sessions. And those are the Speak Out sessions. So I'm going to go over these kind of quickly, but if you want to learn how to do more of them, or maybe you've gone through the Speak Out program, you can be doing your home practice with me every morning. But I'm going to go through those quickly because I really want the time to show you some easy ones that you can do on your own too. So the first Speak Out exercise is the may, me, my, mo, moo. And this is the way it goes. For the Speak Out exercises, we always imagine that we're on stage and we're trying to project our voice up to the balcony. So the first one goes like this. May, me, my, mo. Do it with me. May, me, my, mo, moo. Now we always try to connect them and we try to do as many as we can on one breath, but as long as the sound doesn't end up going to the back of the throat. So we always want it projected forward. So if you have to say one sound on every breath, you could do that, but try to do more. So let's do 2 on one breath and then 2 more and then the last one. It would sound like this. May, me, my, mo, moo. When you do the Speak Out exercises, you don't really think about the breath. Your focus is only on speaking out. You breathe whenever you need to, but you really just focus on projecting forward. Let's do this together. We'll stop after every 2. Here we go. May, me, my, mo, moo. So it's up and over. And if this combination of sounds is challenging, there is nothing wrong with you could do may 5 times, then move on to me. So let's do may together. We'll do 5 of them. Ready? May, 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 may. Every sound up and over. So that's one way you can modify it. All of the Speak Out exercises can be modified to make them easier, okay? The second Speak Out exercise we call the ah. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold ah for 5 seconds. The key is to use a lot of intent. Intent means to be purposeful and to be deliberate, and that's the basis of the Speak Out program. We're going to say ah, but just like the warm-up, we're going to throw the ah up and over. So we're not projecting it out this way. It's up and over. So it sounds like this. Ah. The thing with the ah, you never want it to go to the back of your throat. So you never want to hear ah like that. Even if you can only hold the ah for 1 or 2 seconds, it's okay. Let's do it for 5 seconds. Ah. And that's the second Speak Out exercise. Now we're going to move on to the next one because, again, I want to show you these easy exercises, but these are the Speak Out ones. The Speak Out one, the next one is a glide. You throw the ah up and you glide. You throw it out and you glide up. Listen to me. Ah, and then you stop. And then you throw the ah out and you go down. So it's ah. Let's do the whole sequence together. Ah. Stop all the way. Don't hold your breath. Ah. And that's the third Speak Out exercise. Like I mentioned, online in the morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, I do these exercises for anybody who wants to participate. The next Speak Out exercise really works on coordinating the breathing pattern, being able to take that air in, expand the lungs, contract it, and get the air out. So important for the ability to cough. We connect these and we throw them forwards. So we're going to do one sequence together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and then stop all the way. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay? If this was too hard, you could count maybe to 10 and go 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. The next Speak Out exercise is actually called reading. And so what you can do is repeat phrases. And this is why it's really nice to do the exercises with someone else. So I'm going to say a phrase or a word, and all of you say it with intent. I want you to imagine you're on stage and you're throwing your voice to the top balcony. Here you go. Repeat after me. Hello.
Hi, Samantha.
Yes.
We are at the Q&A portion of the session.
Yes. We have
So
some questions.
I would like to encourage the audience to ask questions, but we've got a couple of that have come in so far.
Oh, okay. All right.
One person would like to know, we know communication is getting more difficult as time progresses. Is there any suggestion for communication devices?
Communication devices are difficult. They are difficult. I would much rather the person work on speaking. And the reason is because of the connection with the swallowing and the breathing and the ability to cough. We never want to stop talking. Now, it wouldn't be bad to put together some type of communication board. So you could come up with phrases that the person says very often. You can do some blocks, like a sheet of paper, and maybe do lines where you've got 6 blocks, 6 boxes, and put those common phrases in it, and the person could point to them. However, I would want them to talk. We always want the person to talk. In my experience, augmentative communications have not worked very well. Also, the person always has to have that device with them. And that's tough. If somebody needs to call for help, I want them to be able to have their voice, even if the sound they make is not as clear as it could be. We always want people to talk. And so I would encourage you to find a speech pathologist who knows how to treat Parkinson's and Parkinson plus disorders and work on the speech. And I will say that is a challenge to find somebody. And we do have therapists that we've trained all over the country because I'll tell you, in graduate school, speech pathologists do not learn how to treat Parkinson's or PSP. It's very challenging, but all right. You have another question?
Yeah, someone would like to know what percentage of PSP patients elect for feeding tubes?
I don't know the percentage of that. We want to do, first of all, I want to tell you that a feeding tube, I don't know, how do I say this? Some people need a feeding tube. Some people do need a feeding tube. Just because somebody has a feeding tube does not mean that the person cannot also eat. So I do want you to understand that there are some people that can do both. I also want you to know that people can aspirate on a feeding tube just like they can aspirate on food. Okay, now some of the reasons that people opt to have a feeding tube are for these reasons. One, maybe the person cannot get enough hydration without the feeding tube. Liquid is very thin. It runs down the throat very quickly, and that can make it hard for some people to swallow. So that would be an example where somebody would have a feeding tube, but maybe they still eat some also. They use the feeding tube for liquids, okay, to get enough hydration. Maybe they get their medications through the feeding tube. Maybe it takes them too long to eat a full meal to have adequate nutrition. So they use the feeding tube, and then the person still does eat perhaps certain foods. They might have to modify it, but it's more for gratification purposes. So one thing I want you to know is that it's not always all or nothing. It doesn't have to be that way. And also not to be afraid of a feeding tube, but you do have to take very good care, and you have to be very careful to keep the head of the bed up. Some bad things have happened even in hospitals when people have done the feeding and then put the bed all the way down. Not good. So, but I want you to think about that. And I'm happy for anybody to email me. CurePSP has my information, and I'll be happy to talk to any of you if you have questions. Do you have another? Is there another question?
Oh, yeah, we've got a couple.
Okay.
My mother with PSP has trouble finding her words. She shouts out the first word as it is a huge effort to find and get it out. Then the rest of the sentence may fade out. What type of therapy/exercises would you suggest?
Well, we didn't get to the sixth speak out exercise, which is the cognitive. And a lot of it is working on word finding. It's very common for people to have slower processing, which means they're going through the files in their brain trying to come up with the words. So working on word finding, actually doing categories back and forth is a great way. I also want to mention this little communication strategy. If you hear and understand part of the message, let's say you get the first 2 or 3 words that somebody says, but you don't get the rest of it, try to avoid saying, "What was that? What did you say?" What I want to encourage you to do is repeat the part you heard and let them finish it, because to reorganize the whole thought is very difficult. So for example, if somebody said, "I really want some ice cream," and so you only heard "I really want," I want you to go, "You really want some," okay? So the person only has to say ice cream. It's a really good technique and reduces a lot of frustration if you don't have the person repeat the whole thing. I do want to mention, because I kept saying these easy exercises I wanted to show you, let me just tell you real quickly. Counting days of the week, months of the year, alphabet, but back and forth. I say 1, you say 2. I say 3, you say 4. Or I do Sunday, they say Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday. or you can do January, February, March, back and forth. You can do A, the person says B, C, D. What's happening every time the person talks, they're coordinating these muscles that they use for swallowing and coughing. They're having to take a breath, even though they're only having to say A or B or 1, 2, Sunday, Monday. It's a great way, easy way to work. Do we have another question?
Yes. Someone had said that my mom was diagnosed with CBD a year and a half ago and her condition is deteriorating. I think speech therapy would be very beneficial, but our insurance does not cover it. Do you have any recommendations for what we should do?
Well, I mean, insurance should cover speech therapy, but I will say if you're in Texas, we can help you. Parkinson Voice Project Speech Therapy Clinic doesn't bill insurance, actually. Since 2008, our program has been funded entirely through donations. That helps you if you're in the state of Texas. We are doing all treatment online, and one of the advantages of us only working off of donations and not billing is that patients have all of that insurance, those Medicare benefits to use on physical therapy. I would suggest that you look into a university speech therapy program. Often the university programs do not charge. You can call Parkinson Voice Project, and we have grant sites, universities that we've given grants to and taught them how to do it. And also I encourage you to go on and participate in these online speech sessions that I'm doing 6 days a week. If you just go to parkinsonvoiceproject.org. And I can tell you about that. It's also on your handout. Also on your handouts, there's information about it. But universities, try the universities.
We have time for just one last question.
Okay.
To what extent do you focus on optimal breathing to support the speech process?
We do not work on breathing at all directly. When we do that, so one of the challenges is traditional speech therapy for Parkinson's and atypical Parkinsonism was to work on breathing, articulation, volume, having expression. What we found 30 years ago is that trying to work on all of those things, multitasking, is too complicated. That's why the program is called Speak Out. Just throw your voice forward. When you do that, you take a deeper breath. You slow down, you speak louder, you articulate better. So the focus is always speak out, but we are working on the breathing. Like I said, taking really deep breaths and everything, but we're not working on breathing. Do not work on separate diaphragmatic breathing because it will not work. It will not generalize to articulation or volume or all of the other things you need. And I'm happy for anybody to email me with questions or call our office and I'll help you.
Well, thank you so much. This was incredibly informative. Our audience is really engaged and so appreciative. And once again, thank you so much for being here, Samantha.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.